All right, let's get right into it. The blueprint. We're talking about the mission to turn 75,000 pounds into 1 million. Now, a single stock like Nebius, which we talked about last time, is a huge part of that. But it's only one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. So today, I'm pulling back the curtain on everything. We are going through my entire portfolio, position by position, so you can see the exact system I'm using to try and hit that number.
You know, the mission itself is, well, it's mathematically simple. But I promise you, psychologically, it is a battle. So this explainer, it's not really about stock tips. It's about the structure you absolutely need to have in place to handle the chaos and actually get to a goal like this.
And that right there is the key. It's a war against your own brain, fighting off the fear when things drop, the greed when things are soaring, that impulse to just chase whatever's hot. To win that war, you can't just be buying tickers you see on social media. No way. You need a system, a framework that guides every single move you make.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics, starting with the general trading account. This is where most of the capital is, and it's really doing the heavy lifting for the whole portfolio. It's got my anchor positions, but it's also where I place some of those high-risk, high-reward bets.
So, the first thing you'll probably notice is that my biggest holding isn't even a pure-play AI stock. It's SoFi, coming in at over 19,000 pounds. That's my fintech bedrock. But right next to it, you've got AMD, my big bet on AI infrastructure. Now, I get this question all the time. Why not NVIDIA? Well, because the world can't run on a monopoly. Think about it. Big tech, they need a second source, and AMD is that hedge. Then we've got Meta. Why Meta? Because Meta is the customer. They're spending billions on the chips that AMD makes. Owning them is how I own the actual demand side of this whole equation.
All right, moving down the list, we get to the fun stuff, the high variance tier. These are smaller, way more speculative bets. So, Iris Energy, that's a pure play on the insane amount of power that AI is going to need. BigBear.ai is a straight-up bet on AI winning defense contracts. And the thinking here is really simple. If these go to zero, it's okay. The portfolio is fine. But if just one of them really hits, man, it completely changes the math for the entire mission.
Okay, let's switch gears and look at the second portfolio, the ISA. Now, for anyone watching outside the UK, this is basically a tax-free account. So this is where I put the stocks that I think have the most absolutely explosive growth potential, completely shielded from the tax man.
And you can see right away, the money here is very concentrated. The single biggest position is Nebius Group at almost 11,000 pounds. And that's followed really closely by Palantir and Applied Digital, both sitting just over 8 grand. This account is where the core of my high-conviction AI growth strategy really lives.
Each of these has a very specific job. Nebius and Applied Digital, those are my picks and shovels bets. They're the ones building the physical cloud infrastructure, the data centers that all this AI runs on. Then you have Palantir. That's the software layer, the brains, the data operating system. And Arista Networks? Well, that's the plumbing. You simply cannot have this AI revolution without their crazy fast networking gear connecting everything together.
So, you've seen the individual stocks spread across 2 different accounts. But how does it all fit together? It's time to connect the pieces and reveal the master plan. Because I promise you, this is not just a random collection of tickers I like.
And this is it. This is the entire strategy on one slide. It's a deliberate, systematic bet on the entire AI supply chain. See? I own the company making the chips. I own the companies building the cloud. I own the company writing the critical software. And I own the end customer who's buying it all. The whole thesis is that if the AI revolution is for real, this entire value chain just has to win. Which, of course, brings us to the single most important question you could possibly ask. When you're this concentrated in a sector as volatile as AI, how on earth do you manage the risk? How do you sleep at night when one of your stocks is up 400% one month and could easily be down 30% the next? Well, you do it with a system. I do not rely on my gut. I've actually built an AI agent that I call Mary Jane, and her job is to be my chief risk officer. Her purpose isn't to tell me what's going to happen. Her job is to be a ruthless short seller, to find every hole in my arguments and to force me to look at the biggest risks head-on, with zero emotion involved. And this is the kind of prompt I give her. So when Nebius was just skyrocketing, the emotional temptation is to ask, should I buy more? Right? Wrong question. I asked Mary Jane to ignore all the hype and tell me the single biggest risk. And you know what she said? She didn't say competition. She flagged dilution. The risk that the company would issue a ton more shares to fund their growth, which would make my piece of the pie smaller. Now that is a real tangible risk I had to think about.
And this is the difference it makes in practice. Your emotional brain sees a stock up 400% and it's screaming, FOMO, buy more before it's too late. But the systematic brain, the one that's listening to the data, says, whoa, hold on. The AI flagged dilution risk. The thesis hasn't changed, so we hold, but we monitor that risk very closely. It's about responding to data, not just reacting to price movements.
Look, the main point here is this. The whole system, the whole strategy, it has nothing to do with trying to be a fortune teller. It's about building a fortress around your own psychology. A solid process is what lets you make calm, logical decisions, and that is the only way you can protect and defend your compounding over the long run.
So that's the blueprint, the whole thing, laid out. But the work is never, ever done. In the next explainer, we're going to take one of these core holdings and put it under the microscope. Palantir's valuation is starting to get pretty scary, and it's time to take it into the boardroom for a full bear case interrogation with Mary Jane.
And remember the most important rule in this whole game. As always, defend the compounding.